Very nice to be talking to the first official lawyer we had on the show. I don't know why I said official. Okay, I know we've had like an illegal lawyer come on the show, but it's great to be speaking to you. When you say law and Lebanon, the two words are very synonymous with each other. And growing up, we believed we were living in a lawless country. We still, till today, believe we're living in a lawless country. So what I wanted to ask you, and what we're going to try to get into today, what is Lebanon's legal system? How is it structured? How does it work?
Okay, so Lebanon's legal structure. First of all, I'm sure you heard that Lebanon's legal structure is completely corrupt, and that, as a lot of people say, 95% of the judges are bad, etc. Really, yeah. It's a bit more complicated than that. It's not about the judges, Ryan. It's in my opinion, really. On the contrary, like 95% of the judges are good. The problem is with the system, with the things, with the way things are set. All right. So you have clearly a political interference in the judiciary, and here lies the problem, not in the judges themselves. Of course, there's a small percentage of the judges who are maybe corrupted, but in general, it's because of the system. Why? You have something called the High Judicial Council, مجلس القضاء الأعلى. 8 out of 10 members of this High Judicial Council are appointed by the government. All right. So I'm sure you've heard this before, but let me give you an example of, like, for example, one or two examples of who these judges are. First of all, you have the المدعي العام التمييزي، يعني رئيس كل النيابات العامة. Can you imagine the president of all the public prosecution? He's the president of يعني كل النيابات العامة. This judge is appointed by the government. Another example, another judge is the رئيس هيئة التفتيش القضائي. هيئة التفتيش القضائي اللي هو المرجع لكل الشكاوى يعني regarding the judges. يعني every time you think a judge is not doing his or her work, you go to this هيئة التفتيش القضائي. So رئيس هيدي الهيئة is appointed by the government. So you get an idea, right?
I'm starting to get an idea. And so all the high-powered judges who essentially have a lot of say are being appointed by the government. How do they get appointed by the government? So it's not just Nabih Berri sitting down and saying you, or how does it work?
Okay, so I gave you an example of 2 of these 8. The other two judges are elected. Okay, so we have a problem with these 8 judges who are key positions. And so that's the first problem. They're appointed by the government. The second problem, okay, you're gonna tell me, okay, what is this High Judicial Council about? What are its prerogatives? So first of all, this High Judicial Council ensures that the courts are doing their work effectively. They monitor the well-functioning of the courts. They make sure the judiciary is independent. And most importantly, this High Judicial Council appoints the judges. هول هن التشكيلات القضائية. يعني which judge goes where, which area will have jurisdiction over which cases, you know, if it's criminal, civil. يعني this High Judicial Council هو رح يعمل التشكيلات القضائية. Okay? And the problem is that these appointments, recruitments, promotions, okay, are not, unfortunately, based on competence. All right, they're mostly based on how affiliated you are to a political party. In addition, once the High Judicial Council made its list and nominated the judges for for the التشكيلات القضائية, it's not done. It has to be issued by a decree signed by President of the Republic, Prime Minister, Minister of Justice, Minister of Defense, and Minister of Finance. So if one of the names of the judges chosen by this High Judicial Council is not, in line with any of the 5 people I just mentioned, the التشكيلات القضائية, the appointments, just stop. Just like what is happening now. You know, التشكيلات القضائية بجرور ما عم ينمضوا, all right? And this is really, really dangerous for justice. So you have the 8 out of 10 members who are appointed by the government. You have the High Judicial Council who is not able to do its own appointments. They need the okay of the government. And the High Judicial Council is not only administratively dependent, but is also financially dependent. The High Judicial Council doesn't have its own financial autonomy. Its budget is allocated by the Minister of Justice. So how do you expect the judiciary to be independent and the separation of powers, the executive separated from the judiciary, when it's not financially independent?
So how I view it, to make it in like layman's terms and just like simplify it, it's a bit like a cake. Yani, you have one council, one committee, then there's another bigger one. Then it actually at the top of the cake, the fucking cherry on top, is the government as a unanimous government being the ones to put these people in positions of power. And akid, they will be putting in, as you mentioned, people who suit their own agendas, people they have wasta. We love the term wasta here. And this is where the issue lies. Exactly,
totally. This is why we need a reform here. A reform not only in the mentalities, نفضة مثل ما هي, but also in the law. The law should be adopted in this matter, which is قانون استقلالية القضاء. And the most important thing is that these judges, the members of the High Judicial Council, would only be elected by their peers, by the judges themselves, and they would be final. They won't need any decree, all right, in order for the nomination, for the appointments to become final. And this will ensure, when you have only judges appointing, their peers, okay, this will ensure nomination upon criteria of competence, the right person at the right place, and not by political affiliation. Because how do you expect? Go ahead.
Sorry. I get your point, and in a normal world, this makes complete sense. Yeah, in a civilized country, this makes sense. But how do you confirm that the judges, being the ones to appoint the judges, are not politically affiliated? What if you have 70% of them are politically affiliated? Won't they nominate judges who are affiliated like themselves to certain parties?
Okay, good question, but really, like for example now, رئيس مجلس القضاء الأعلى, رئيس سهيل عبود, you have no idea how excellent he is in terms of competence, in terms of ethics. This judge is really an example, and he is at the head of this High Judicial Council, but I guess maybe his hands are tied since the political oligarchy is interfering. If you let this kind of judge work on his own with a group of judges, trust me, things will get better, okay? And therefore judges won't be afraid of rendering a decision, because let me tell you something, Ryan. If it's you and I, in a court, we are not politically affiliated. The judges' decisions are excellent. They're really objective, explained. But if one of us knows someone or is affiliated by a political party, then boom, the problem occurs. So this judge he cannot. Like if for example somebody appoints you, in a position, how are you expected to judge against him or against somebody related to him? It's impossible. But if somebody independent appoints you, then your hands are free, and you can do whatever you're conscious and whatever the law tells you to do.
So has this happened? I'm sure it has happened before, where a judge is put in a position in court where maybe there's one political party on one side, another on another side, and he has to give a verdict. What happens then if he gives the wrong verdict that doesn't suit whoever's appointing him, whoever has, controlled him? Does he get fired? Does he get, what happens to the judge who
Exactly. He gets, instead of getting promoted, he will get punished. So let's say the judge who rendered a decision against a certain political party, بالتشكيلات القضائية الجاي in the next appointments, instead of getting promoted, he will get downgraded, and he will be like sent to, for example, Jazin or I don't know, Amyun, okay, instead of being in Babda or Beirut or Matan or like the key, with all due respect to all the areas in Lebanon, but he won't have an influential position anymore. Instead of supporting him, he will be downgraded, and judges really don't want that. They want to get promoted. Instead of being, for example, رئيس محكمة, he will just be a mustashar. You know what I mean?
So basically, if you don't adhere to whichever political parties have the say within the judicial system, it will be stopping your career growth. And let's be real, everyone wants promotions, everyone wants to reach the peak of their career and the pinnacle. What happens to the judges who want to have nothing to do? And I have a few friends whose dads are judges. To my knowledge, they're quite respectable and they're not politically affiliated. Does their career suffer? Will they stick to a certain place instead of getting that promotion and climbing the ranks?
In my opinion, yes. If one of the political parties is really, really upset, and you're not backed up by another one, if you upset them all, well, there's no chance of you, for the judge to be promoted, of course, unless you're against the political party, but you're backed up by another one, then they will push you. But if you're totally independent, your growth will be very slow, and it will be, stopped at some point.
So what I'm getting out of talking to you right now is that there are good judges. This is important to mention. Not every judge in the system right now is corrupt. There are independents. Usually if they are independents and their morals are good, their career suffers. And the issue that we have right now with legislation and the legal system and the courts is completely a systemic issue. Okay. This is easier said than done, and we can just easily say كلهم يعني كلهم. But how do you... It sounds like a top to bottom problem. So is the solution just a secular, independent government? And without that, are we never going to see a fair court system and a fair judicial system?
Yeah, exactly. And you just tackled a very important point that, by the way, the High Judicial Council is also nominated upon secular, a religious basis. Like, for example, the Rais Majlis Qada al-A'la is Christian, the Naib al-Am al-Tamizi is Sunni. So can you imagine, instead of being focused on competence and on how brave and like the right man or woman at the right place, we're focused on جيبوا المسيحي من هون السني الشيعي من هون. So and really the law should be adopted as soon as possible, because an independent judiciary, Ryan, is really the key, is the cornerstone of any to reach accountability, to get people's rights, to avoid crimes being unpunished, get done with impunity. You can't have like a normal country without an independent judiciary.
100%. But this sounds like something that respectfully will take 10, 20 years, and that's if we start getting an independent political system. Hella, there are positives. I remember reading an article and all the news that came out that Melhem Khalaf was appointed head of the Beirut Bar Association, something like that. are these signs that it's starting to change, or was this just merely a small thing to happen?
Definitely. Let me tell you something. You know that Melhem Khalaf becoming the head of the Beirut Bar Association is a first, in which sense that usually the custom wants that you first get elected in the committee, and then 2 years later you run for the presidency. He just came from outside, and everybody was like, there's no way, he wasn't even a member, and he was faced with all the bulldozer political parties, and for the past decades, the Beirut Bar Association presidents were affiliated to political parties. And honestly, the fact of Melhem Khalaf being elected at the head of the Beirut Bar Association, of course, it proves that things have changed, that people, maybe not all of the people, not everyone, but a large majority are really fed up with the political parties, and they elected a completely independent person, bearing in mind that the lawyer who was running against him, who is not politically affiliated but was just supported by the political parties. He is independent, but supported. They made him fail. They didn't want to, have any relationship with the political parties, and also the same goes to the universities. Before running to a student council, in a student council, you should. Before you should be affiliated to a political party. Now we see that the secular clubs are winning, and things are moving. They are moving slowly, but they surely are moving.
Anna, I think one of the most important things is transparency. Yani, I feel like us as Lebanese, we don't know what the fuck the laws are. This is the issue. Yani, you have no idea what rights you have. And maybe you can apply this thinking in other countries, but it's a lot more apparent, you know what I mean? I'll give you a small example. Yani, these weren't laws, but these were enacted by the government when there were lockdowns and there were specific rules and things. Nobody knew where the fuck to go, where to look, what were the laws with lockdown, what can I do, what can't I do. We ended up taking a fine because we were walking when we shouldn't have been walking. And the officers told us, yes, well, it was everywhere. We listed it on social media and everywhere. So I think there is a clear problem with an access to information. I read, studying up on this, that there was a law passed. It's called the Access to Information Law, which I think was passed in 2017 or so.
Correct.
Allowing people to go and ask the government, the courts, whatever, for public documents, for different pieces of articles and information.
Correct.
I also have read that while this was technically enacted, it's not actually being executed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you mentioned people don't know, their rights here in Lebanon and their obligation, and this is one of the main reasons that pushed me to start with my Instagram page, because really I realized that people around me, even among the most educated ones, are not aware of their basics, their basic rights and their basic obligations. Even doctors, engineers, they don't know, they don't even understand what is being said on the news. They don't even understand what is being written in the newspapers. Okay, so you're right, and access to information is key to increase transparency and hence hold politicians accountable. Because how are you supposed to hold politicians accountable if you don't know what's going on? So as you mentioned, this law was passed in 2017, but unfortunately is not being enforced. The first reason is, this law, let me explain it first quickly, is it allows every citizen, every NGO, every journalist, everyone basically, to ask information from the government, from public administrations, from every entity related to the government, and to ask information, to ask statistics, to ask how many arrests have been done, okay, have been...
What's your net worth? How much did you steal? Like this type of information.
Exactly. What was the deal, الصفقة بالكهرباء? Let me see the contract, in everything, really. And so the first problem is these public administrations, apart from allowing, the citizens to have access to them, the administrations have the obligation, okay, to publish them periodically, once a year, twice a year, on their websites. But the problem is most of them don't even have websites, all right, to publish. Also, public administrations don't even have this mentality of publishing, information. They like to keep it secret because this is what they're used to, all right? So really a change of mentality, a drastic change of mentalities is really required here. And yeah, so also they were saying ما كان في مرسوم تطبيقي, a decree, okay, so we cannot apply the law, but like we know that مرسوم تطبيقي is not mandatory every time. A law should be enforced. In some very particular cases you need a مرسوم تطبيقي, and anyways the مرسوم تطبيقي was issued a few months ago, and still the administrations and the public institutions are not applying the law, and this law is really key. I read somewhere that the more the country is corrupted, the more laws you have. So it's really, I think it's really not a matter of how many laws you have, and because they're very proud, they go on television, نحن عملنا لكم قانون الحق للوصول إلى المعلومات, but يعني العبرة بالتنفيذ, okay, the key is to enforce these laws, not to adopt them. Like for example, the banking secrecy, okay, like also a few months ago طلعوا على تلفزيونات الشباب نحن عملنا بدنا نرفع السرية المصرفية عن كل اللي بيتعاطوا الشأن العام. And when you look at the law, in the bill يعني ال draft law, يعني الاقتراح القانون, okay, before it turns into law, it was the judge was given this authority to lift the banking secrecy. At the moment of the vote, this authority given to the judge was removed. So now you have a law, okay, another law, where you can lift the banking secrecy on the public people, but the judge is not giving the authority to do so. Who is given the authority to do so? الهيئة التحية الخاصة, which is presided by حاكم مصرف لبنان, and anyway it has always been given this authority, and it hasn't lifted يعني secrecy على حدا من وقت ما تهربوا كل الأموال. And الهيئة الثانية اللي هي بعد ما تشكلت بعد, okay, there's another authority supposed to be created. It's supposed to be 6 members. 4 of them again will be appointed by who? By the government. So okay, بيطلعوا بيقولوا لك قانون. First of all, you have to see the essence of the قانون. If it's still there, according to me, تفضل للessence تبعه. And even if you have an قانون, you have to it should be enforced. And here is Rayan, the important point also. يعني قبل ما قانون استقلالية القضاء, okay, it's not there, but every judge should, like, regardless of whether there's a law or not, should be عن جد هو يكون عنده مناعة from the inside, لأنه فيك تحط له مليون law and still he would still be corrupted.
So basically, you said it yourself, they like to give the impression and go on MTV and all these media sites to say, look at the laws we've imprinted and put out there, but they don't actually execute them. One thing, and especially this is from a personal perspective something I'm very interested in, being a bit in media with the podcast, is freedom of expression. According to what I know, technically you can come out and more or less say whatever you want online because Lebanon is kind of viewed as progressive and we can critique our leaders. But at the same time, I've seen many examples of people, calling out the president or speaker of parliament or prime minister or whatever, and then they get hit with defamation law. So how does freedom of expression work? What can we say? What can't we say? How can we critique our politicians? And
That's a very good question, because indeed it is confusing. So you have on one hand the constitution, okay, that guarantees freedom of speech and freedom of expression and refers to the Déclaration universelle des droits de l'homme, okay. So you have that on one hand, okay, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But on the other hand, the Constitution states that as long as it is within the limits of the laws. And هون the devil is in the details. So what do Lebanese laws state in this matter? And there is the problem. Really, the terms used in the law are very broad, are very vague, and are very broadly interpreted. You have, for example, المس بالسلم الأهلي، إثارة النعرات الطائفية، المس بكرامة أو شرف الرئيس. So really anything can constitute defamation, slander, anything, okay? Because they are so broad. And the fact that they are broad and vague is being exploited, okay, by the government and especially by the Cyber Bureau, okay, who uses these texts in the law and who takes advantage of them to arrest activists and journalists, intimidate them, pressure them by making them like sign illegal pledges. And also, they often don't respect, the rights of the detainees. Like, for example, Article 47 that was recently amended last year in October 2020. According to this new article, a lawyer, you have the right to have a lawyer from the beginning till the end of the investigation. And often, the Cyber Bureau doesn't even respect this article. So really, it's like I said, confusing, because you have the Constitution that guarantees the freedom of expression, but you have the very broad texts in the law which limit this freedom of expression.
I see what you mean. So it's another case of, well, look, we are progressive, the laws are there, but execution, which is tending to be a theme here, which is good to know. So Anaf, khalas, from my end, I know what to say and what not to say. I'm already very careful anyway.
لا, but in order for you to know exactly, Anjad, the law should be amended, okay? Because, by the way, do you know that if you curse the president of the republic, you can get imprisoned for up to 2 years? Imprisonment for cursing, okay? Do you know that if you curse the army or the judiciary, you can get imprisoned for up to 1 year, okay? So in my opinion, the law should be amended. Like, first point, okay, a switch should occur from criminal to civil. يعني انت إذا سبيت, instead of being imprisoned, you would pay a fine, okay? Like in any other, civilized country. Also, the amendments that should be done to the law is explain and clarify these wide and these vague terms in the law. And what is exactly إثارة النعرات الطائفية? What is exactly المس بكرامة and شرف الرئيس? And also, there's something important, Rayan, is that there is something called قانون المطبوعات, okay, the publication law, and the court, the publication court, يعني محكمة المطبوعات. هن مسؤولين ينظروا بكل الدعاوى بالقدح والدم, etc. Done because the law is old, بالنewspaper, بالتلفزيونز, على الراديو, but digital spaces are not included yet. And why is it important? So for now, حدا activist بيقول شيء غلط على فيسبوك, على تويتر, على انستغرام, it goes under the criminal, okay, law.
Okay. I see.
Yeah, and not the publication law. So هون it's really important to add the digital spaces as the يعني in the jurisdiction of the publication law. Why? Because like for example, one of the example is that in بقانون المطبوعات إذا مثلا حدا journalist قال شيء on TV, okay, ما في شيء اسمه توقيف احتياطي. ما في. Okay, he gets judged. And then whatever happens within a court decision. بقانون العقوبات, which is not قانون المطبوعات, okay, في توقيف احتياطي. عم نشوف and that is getting used and abused. So this is a very important demand and amendment that should happen.
Wow, this is a huge piece of information I didn't know. So to clarify, because the laws are very old, if you critique politicians or go off and say anything on old media, traditional media, newspapers, TVs and everything, you will be held into account civilly. This is not a criminal case, this is a civil law case. Whereas if you say it on digital...
مش قصة civil law, you have a special إذا بدك court, okay? بعدين فيها تقرر whatever, بس ما في شيء اسمه توقيف احتياطي.
Okay. And they haven't adopted or changed the laws to suit digital. Therefore, if you are, like you're saying, going on digital, you can be trialed as a criminal.
Exactly. And
this is a huge
not as a journalist.
Yeah,
exactly. And خلاص إنه القانون it is like decades ago. It really should get amended. And خلاص هلا even journalists on newspaper هلا use social media. Right?
That's
and
true.
Podcasts.
No, that's true.
And
so yeah, well, hopefully podcasts remain in this gray zone. Even though, to be fair, I think we've been okay. But look, I also, something I really wanted to talk to you about, I can't not ask you about this, is the Beirut port explosion. So many people, everyone in this country wants to see justice. We thought that there might have been justice with Judge Sawan, who had quite a good reputation. And, there were reports and rumors, and yes, they're going to go after everyone, and even if it's the politicians, and then he was taken off the case. So what I wanted to ask you is, do you think we're ever going to legally see any justice with the August 4th explosion?
Wow.
No pressure.
I don't know, but I really don't want to lose hope. And I personally lost one of my best friends in this blast. She was...
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you. She was 36. She was a brilliant, witty, amazing lady. She left, a finance career in Geneva and in Paris to be, to play a role in her community, to be close to her family. I don't want to give up, and I don't want to believe that it's over, okay? And we should all fight, everyone in his or her own way, to get there. Now, really, Ryan, this explosion, like one of the biggest explosion in history, that killed 200 people, wounded more than 6,000 people who are still suffering, and left homeless more than 300,000 people. All right, this is huge. The magnitude of this explosion is just huge, immeasurable. This is why we shouldn't be looking at the port investigation as a normal investigation, as a normal, a murder, or, we should be looking at this investigation from the side of the family victims, okay? We have to put ourselves in their place. So when you look, when you stand on the side of the family victims, they don't want to understand numbers. They don't want to listen to Articles 40, Article 79, immunity. They don't want that. They want the truth. After the truth, they want accountability, because this is essential for their grieving process. And this is what the father of one of the victims told me. It's important for their grieving process. They want to know who and why and when, okay? So, and this is why when Judge Sawan was dismissed, it was a black day. It was a black day for the Lebanese in general and for the family victims in particular. The victims were killed another time, and they are being killed every day that goes through and that goes by without any, a hint of information. So I think this is what people need to realize, okay, and the political class needs to understand, okay. So going back to Judge Sawan, he was dismissed because he didn't want to, stop at the immunity thing. Okay, he said, you know what, there's immunity. Okay, you know what, I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to overpass this, and because I want to know the truth. Okay, instead of being supported, he was dismissed. Okay, so that was for me clearly a 1-0 for politicians, 0 for the judiciary and for the truth. And okay, so if you wanna, I don't know if you want me to go through the immunities. Just very quickly.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's important, okay? First of all, the ministers who were charged were not charged as members of parliament or lawyers. They were charged as members, okay, of the government at the time of the explosion, okay? Ali Hassan Khalil was not charged as a lawyer. So here immunities don't apply, okay? And immunities, in addition, were not put to they were made to protect, a member of parliament while he's talking, while he's defending a cause, to limit any potential lawsuit of defamation, etc., that would, arise from him holding a speech. But it was never put in the constitution in order to protect them from a potential murder, okay? And anyways, these immunities should, we should get over with. Like, why does an MP have immunity and I don't have an immunity, or you don't have immunity? We are all equal under the law. We are all equal according to the constitution. If Sawan took a side and wasn't being neutral, he took the side of justice, okay? And the second reason why he was dismissed is that they considered that him having a house in Ashrafiyya that was damaged shows that no, there's legitimate suspicion over his neutrality.
They discovered this 6 months after assigning him to the case. Oh, weird.
Yeah. Plus, so as you mentioned, 6 months after, as if they didn't know. Second. He didn't even file a lawsuit, and he is not even a party in the lawsuit, like in regard to his damaged house. All right. So really, this decision was it was really a black day when this decision was rendered. You're asking me if I have hope. There's something important here, is that Tariq Bitar, the new lead investigator judge, he knows what's going around. He saw that Sawan was dismissed, and still he accepted the job. So really, I want to believe that maybe he can do something. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's not a lot of time between Sawan stepping down and appointing Tariq Bitar. لو ما كان في ثورة ولا ما كان في pressure, trust me, كنا قعدنا أشهر, لأنه the lead investigator should be appointed by the رئيس مجلس القضاء الأعلى, President of the High Judicial Council, and وزيرة العدل, the Minister of Justice. So usually an agreement like this takes months, right? So he was quickly appointed. He knows what he's getting himself into. So I want to try and give the Lebanese judiciary the benefit of the doubt. Yeah.
I want to be optimistic as well, and I really don't know anything about the new judge that's been appointed. But wouldn't you say, my Judge Sawan, clearly it was a cause that he couldn't beat. So anyone else accepting this cause, would there be, I don't know, some people might say, like, in order to accept this, you have to be affiliated. Because look what happened to Judge Sawan. He clearly was trying to fight for justice. Didn't work. Bye-bye. So why would anyone else take this if they know that, I don't know, you can't fight the system?
That's a very good question. And the fact that he took it, let's wait and see what he has in mind. Maybe he has a different tactic. Maybe he wants, to interrogate like he's doing now. Today he's interrogating the like I think 4 or 5 officials that are being held. So maybe he has a different technique. Maybe he wants like now to leave the politicians aside for a bit and get technical. Maybe he has his own way. The judge is honest. He is known to have ethics, and he is known to be straightforward. And he knows what happened to his predecessor, and he still accepted the job. So I really want to,
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds a bit more optimistic, and I definitely, after hearing that, is, you never know in this country to have optimism, but it's a bit nice to hear. And I did want to ask you, now that we've discussed how crazy and fucking complicated the system is, and sectarian and wasta, do you think we should have an international investigation?
I'm not sure, Ryan, honestly. First of all, we saw what happened with the special tribunal with Rafiq al-Hariri. Okay, Rafiq al-Hariri was a prime minister who got assassinated. He wasn't like my 36-year-old friend in Jamaize or little baby Alexandra Najjar. He was prime minister, and still, okay, 15 years later and millions of dollars later spent, okay, they indicted one man, okay, and there was an agreement, there was a deal between the Lebanese government and the STL not to indict any political party. So I'm not sure that everything international is like انه منيح بالضروره. اكيد هلا بدك تقول لي اكيد احسن من لبنان، اكيد احسن من لبنان، ماني اكيده. يعني اجوا الاف بي اي واجوا الفرنش انفستيجيتورز، وين التقارير؟ شو قالوا؟ يعني نحن قلنا انه خلص اجى الاف بي اي واجوا الفرنش قالوا الاقمار الاصطناعيه ما كانت ماشيه. انه I think we should all allow the Lebanese judiciary to function. Okay, like for example, when caretaker Prime Minister Diab was charged. Okay, like just let me tell you something. Of course, there are the people who they're responsible for the buying of the nitrate, the responsible side for storing, the nitrate in the port, the responsible for on the day of August 4 what happened, who detonated or who is responsible on the day of August 4. But there is also negligence and recklessness. So, and for me it's as important, because had like the politicians been responsible, August 4 wouldn't have happened. So when Hassan al-Jab got charged, okay, for negligence, he stepped out of the Sarai and just stated that his conscience was clear and that he wasn't going to get interrogated. I mean, وين هيبة القضاء؟ القضاء لازم يكون على الكل، okay, ولا الكل. He cannot decide not to go because his conscience was clear. What example is he setting to the people? يعني أنت هلا بتروح تسرق أو تهدى، بيجوا بتقولوا لا أنا ضميري مرتاح. Okay. And we saw at the time Hariri paying him a visit, going to the Sarai, and لأنه مقام رئيس الحكومة was at risk. ليه؟ لأنه they have the same religion. In the name of the religion, they unite.
You did mention, just quickly, you did mention the Hariri tribunal, and something I understood. I didn't know that, according to you, there was an agreement that you couldn't try a political party.
Yeah, that was an agreement.
I thought it was there wasn't enough evidence found to try a political, because if you're going to do that,
and this is the thing. Whenever you reach out to the international community, there's something called sovereignty. The Lebanese authorities have to agree You are entering their country, our country, okay? So, okay, STL came, but there was a deal. So, you know, okay, هلا بيقولوا لك, okay, United Nations, بيجوا. What if the Lebanese authorities don't hand in, you know, critical information? إنه عرفت كيف؟ So, هلا أكيد for me, I want to give the benefit of the doubt to the Lebanese judiciary, but maybe for the last time. Yani, of course, Sawan's dismissal was a big mistake. Let's see what will happen with Tariq Bitar, and then we'll take it from there.
Please, I know lawyers like to charge for time, so I'm very thankful that this is for free. I want to clarify that. So thank you so much. I learned a lot. I hope a lot of people as well got some insight into how the system works. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Really, it's an honor. Thank you.